The young man standing on Clara's porch didn't look like a threat, but he knew exactly which floorboard to skip in the hallway so it wouldn't creak. It was raining, a hard, driving October rain that stripped the last leaves from the oaks. Clara had hesitated to open the door. She lived alone now, in the big Victorian house at the end of the lane. Since Henry died 2 years ago, the silence of the house had become a heavy, protective blanket. She didn't like visitors poking holes in it, but the young man looked soaked to the bone. He was shivering, clutching a canvas rucksack to his chest. He looked to be about 25, with messy hair and eyes that seemed too old for his face. "I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am," he shouted over the wind. "My car broke down a mile back. My phone is dead. Could I possibly use your landline to call a tow truck?" Clara gripped the door handle. "I can make the call for you," she said, her voice sharp. "You can wait on the porch." He looked down at his muddy boots, then back up at her. He offered a weary, harmless smile. "I understand. I wouldn't let a stranger in either. But if you could just tell the tow company I'm near the old Miller property. They'll know where that is." Clara froze. "The Miller property?" "Yes, ma'am. The Millers haven't lived next door for 30 years, Clara said slowly. "It's a subdivision now." The young man blinked, looking confused. "Right. Sorry. I heard my friend talk about it that way." Clara hesitated. He was shivering violently now. Her maternal instinct, dormant but not dead, twitched. "Come in," she sighed, stepping back. "But you stay in the foyer. The phone is in the kitchen. I'll bring it to you." He stepped inside, dripping on the mat. "Thank you." Truly, Clara turned to go to the kitchen. When she glanced back, the air left her lungs. The young man wasn't standing on the mat. He had walked 3 steps into the hallway, but he hadn't made a sound. The third board from the door, the one that screamed like a banshee if you so much as looked at it, was silent. He had stepped perfectly over it, his foot landing on the solid oak beyond. Clara stopped. "You've been here before," she accused, her hand tightening on the fabric of her cardigan. The man looked up, startled. "No, ma'am, never. You missed the squeaky board," she said, her voice rising. "Henry, my husband. He was the only one who knew how to do that without looking. He stepped over it every night for 40 years. The young man shifted his weight. He looked at the painting hanging above the hallway console table, a watercolor of a lighthouse. "That's the Pemaquid Point light," he said softly. "You bought it on your honeymoon, 1974. It was raining that day, too. You ate lobster rolls in the car because the restaurant roof was leaking." Clara backed away, her heart hammering against her ribs. She reached out and grabbed the heavy brass umbrella stand. "Who are you?" she demanded. "How do you know that?" "Henry never told anyone about the roof leaking. That was our joke." The young man didn't advance. He stood still, looking deeply sad. "And the clock," he said, nodding toward the grandfather clock in the corner. "It runs 4 minutes fast. You keep it that way because you're chronically late. And Henry hated being late. So he tricked you. But you figured it out in 1985 and never let him fix it." "Get out!" Clara screamed, brandishing the brass stand. "I'm calling the police." "Please," the man said, raising his hands. "I'm not here to rob you. I'm here because I feel like I live here. I feel like I know you, Clara." He used her name. I'm Daniel, he said quickly. I was Henry's student. Clara lowered the umbrella stand an inch. Henry was an accountant. He didn't have students. Not in a school, Daniel said. He reached into his wet canvas bag. Clara flinched, expecting a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a stack of paper. It was thick, bound with rubber bands, the edges worn and soft from handling. I was in the prison literacy program, Daniel said, his voice trembling slightly. Henry volunteered. For 5 years, every Tuesday. Clara stared at him. Henry had gone out every Tuesday evening. He told her he was playing cards at the lodge. He said he needed man time. He taught me to read, Daniel said. But we did more than that. We wrote. He told me to practice by writing about my life. But I didn't have a life, just a cell. So he told me to write about his life. He described everything to me. This house, the garden, you. Daniel held out the stack of letters. He wrote to me in between sessions. Daniel continued. He described this hallway. He told me about the floorboard so I could walk through the house in my mind when I was locked up at night. He told me about the lighthouse. He told me about how you hum when you make Earl Grey tea. But only the Earl Grey, never the English breakfast. Clara dropped the umbrella stand. It clattered loudly on the floor. She took the stack of letters. The top one was in Henry's neat, blocky handwriting. October 12th. Dear Daniel, it's raining today. Clara is wearing that yellow sweater I like. She thinks she looks washed out in it. But she looks like the sun coming through the clouds. I didn't tell her that. I should have told her that. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Henry was a stoic man. He said, I love you on anniversaries and Christmas. He was steady, reliable, and silent. She had always wondered, in the quiet moments, if he found her boring, if he found their life mundane. She flipped to another page. March 3rd. Daniel, remember when we talked about the word sanctuary? Mine is the armchair by the fire where Clara reads. I live for the moment when she falls asleep and her book slips. And I catch it before it hits the floor. I want you to find a sanctuary like that someday. Clara looked up at Daniel. The young man was crying too. I got out last week, Daniel said, wiping his eyes. I didn't have anywhere to go. I wanted to see if the paradise was real. Henry made it sound like paradise. The fear that had gripped Clara vanished, replaced by a warmth that flooded her chest, thawing the 2-year winter of her grief. Henry hadn't been playing cards. He hadn't been distancing himself. He had been immortalizing her. He had been painting their quiet, ordinary life in vibrant colors for a boy who saw only gray. You skipped the floorboard, Clara whispered. Henry said it drives you crazy. Daniel smiled weakly. Clara stepped forward and opened the door to the kitchen wide. The phone is in the kitchen, she said softly. But the kettle is on too, and I have Earl Grey. Do you drink tea, Daniel? I've never had it, he admitted. Well, Clara said, gesturing him further inside. Come in. I'll make you a cup. And you can tell me what else Henry said about the yellow sweater. The young man stepped forward into the light of the hallway. He looked at the walls with reverence, like he was entering a cathedral. And Clara realized with a full heart that the visitor didn't know too much. He knew exactly enough. He carried the missing pieces of her husband's heart, delivered right to her door. The end.